this office is jobs, the economy, and small business. We need those. Thank you.
My youngest brother has worked for the Department of Corrections and serves as a detention officer, and I think it's one of the things that we have to continue to examine, because the importance is well, it's great that the crime rate seems to be going down, that there's no longer a need for some of these prisons in utilization. The fact is, in this community, so many people depend on those good-paying jobs, correctional officers, and we need to ensure that those correctional officers have the resources that are able to provide them safety in the field that they work in. When it comes to closing down some of these buildings, I think it's really important that all options are for consideration on how they could be utilized. There's a number of different resources that are available at the state level, and as you know, the governor has been involved in conversations about how they move forward with some of these buildings once they're vacant. But I would tell you, as a legislator, I think it's important to keep those buildings operational. One of the things we cannot afford to do is let these buildings become stationary like the old Naval Reserve building is on Northern. It's one of the challenges we face when we look at Southern Colorado receiving its area of appropriations for then demoing these buildings, and so we need to continue to have life within these buildings by any means possible.
I agree with Leroy, you need to keep the buildings in good repair. But one of the things that will do will cost us as taxpayers more in upkeep. We're already hurting. People don't have jobs, they don't have wages, and they're not paying taxes. How in the world can the government come in and continue to support something that is not functional? We have too much of that as it is. One of the things that we need to do is to provide an atmosphere through the state legislature to entice small businesses, large businesses, and anything to come and take a look at these facilities and see what they can do. I mean to tell you, some of those buildings are prime. And I agree with Leroy, they need to be kept up, they need to be maintained, but let's take a look at trying to get them utilized instead of just sitting idle and being a money drain. We want our money used effectively. We don't pay our taxes to put it in a sack with holes in the bottom. Thank you.
You're good? Okay. Leroy, you'll handle the next question first. The Colorado Personhood Amendment did not make the November ballot this year, but it clearly is an issue that is not going to go away, and there may be even legislation introduced in the next session. What is your position on that issue?
So my position is that I have always found it difficult to try to understand how others can tell women how to be responsible with their decision on how they should manage these types of decisions. You know, I know that women are fully capable, and if they needed the consultation or wanted the consultation of their spouse and religious counselors, that I think this is really a question of undermining women's rights in this community and in this country at this day and age when they clearly have a decision to make in these regards.
Okay. Jerry?
Steve, I didn't quite catch that question.
Sure. The Colorado Personhood Amendment did not make the November ballot this year, but it's going to probably come up again and maybe in this next session. So what's your position on that?
My position on that is the government has no business spending our money in the area of telling people what they can and cannot do with their bodies. I do believe that each person can make their own decisions on any subject, including this one. As far as an amendment to declare a personhood, one of the worst things you can hear is I'm from the government and I'm here to help. This is not one of the areas where I believe the government has the authority to meddle in personal people's lives. You have your religious beliefs, you have people who have no religious beliefs, but I believe each and every person is entitled to do and live their life according to their own lights. And taking it to the government and having them mandate what must be done is unacceptable. I'm certain that there are others out there who want that personhood amendment, and I would, in my heart, I agree that you can't destroy a life, but you can't have the government mandating whether you can do that or not, or providing your tax money to do it or not. That's one of the things I believe the government has to step back from. Get out of our lives. We don't need you to tell us what to do. We're intelligent enough, we're understanding enough to know what we want to do. And you can only do that in your own mind. You don't want the government telling you what to do. Thank you.
Well, the challenge is that when you elect a candidate to serve, they become part of the government. And when they have those values, as my opponent just said, I believe that's what's important, that's what I believe in my heart, then how can you go and serve in the legislature, make decisions that impact everyday citizens, knowing that's where your values are? My values are based on the fact that I believe that's a decision for a woman to make.
I agree with Leroy on that. That's a decision for a woman to make without government interference. Without a law on the books. You don't need any more of the government involvement in our personal lives. We are steeped in that. In fact, I can equate that to the jobs and the unemployment conditions here. The government created the conditions we're living under. We don't want them creating other conditions that we don't want to live under as well. You take these things and you do this, the personal thing that you choose to do without government interference. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, you'll handle this one first. Do you support or oppose the ballot measure legalizing the possession and use of small amounts of marijuana?
I don't believe in legalizing any drug that is not certified by the Food and Drug Administration. I do not believe in legalizing marijuana. I've seen what it has done in our community. While I was growing up, we never saw marijuana. We didn't know what it was. But as the decades went by, it crept into our community, into our schools, and I believe part of the problems we have with our youth today is drugs. And the drug of introduction is marijuana. And I don't believe that there should be any legalization of marijuana whatsoever. I will have one caveat on that. There are some uses, medicinal uses for it, they say, and I'm one of these natural medicine people, and I think if there is that use, that should be quite right, quite okay to do. Thank you.
Leroy?
So I think it's important to remember that these initiatives are driven by the voters. These initiatives are ballot measures that voters say this is what they want. And so, Mr. Henson, the question really is, what do the voters want? Do the voters want to see this pass, or do they want to see it defeated? And I would not take that to the state legislature with any bias. That's an initiative that should be driven by the voters.
Okay.
I agree with Leroy on that. The most important political position in our city, county, and state and country is that of private, sovereign citizen who votes. And any initiative that they deem perfect, carry it on. Let's go.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Leroy, you'll answer this one next. If elected, what will you do to bring more private sector jobs to this district?
If elected, I want to ensure that jobs and moving forward with this economy is one of my top priorities. I've experienced it firsthand from the experience I have on Public City Council and with the great expertise of groups like PEDCO who help us every day attract jobs that pay livable wages. This community needs these types of jobs. And I want to be that type of legislator who looks hard to find these jobs and bring them back to southern Colorado so that we can afford people the opportunity to have livable wages.
Okay. Jerry?
Well, I'm running because of jobs, economy, and small business. And my theme is return to prosperity. What can you give to the people so they can prosper again? That's unchained opportunity. If you're not tax friendly, if you're not property friendly, if you're not regulation friendly, if you're not energy friendly, then you're not small business friendly and you're not job friendly. 97% of the people in Colorado work for a small business. Talking to the small business people around the country, around the city and the state, I mean, they tell me of the regulations and the burdens from all the bureaucracies that they have to put up with. All of the licenses and fees and inspections that are delayed and taking long periods of time to get over with, to get paid. These need to be dealt with at the state legislative level. We need to change the atmosphere in this state to relieve the burdens on our small businesses. Small businesses are sitting on tons of money from their savings and from their earnings. They don't really have the courage to jump out there and do anything with it because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if the business atmosphere is going to get better from the state legislature or if it's going to get worse. What they need to know is that there's somebody up there who knows how to wear out a pair of work shoes and work gloves to get the job done and knows what they need to do to make a payroll and to make a paycheck and to hire people. And I understand that's what I'm going to do. I want to do that for the people that live here in this state to make them prosperous again. Thank you.
So specifically in Pueblo, small businesses make up about 85% of the local economy, and at the state level, it's about 50%. And I know that from my experience as a healthcare professional, many of these regulations, I'd love to hear what specific regulations hamper this, because the reality is many of these regulations are to ensure safety for workers in the workforce that we depend on. So I understand that. I want to look to find opportunities for small business owners to move forward with tax relief or tax initiatives and incentives that could help small business growth. But regulations many times serve to help protect workers.
Safety regulations are great. Believe me, I know that. I was almost fatally injured out there at the steel mill, and if there would have been a safety regulation in that area, that might not have happened. But we're not talking about safety regulations, folks. We're talking about tax regulations, property regulations, rules, bureaucracy regulations, energy cost. We want those burdens taken off the backs of our people and our businesses so they can thrive, so they can be unafraid to invest their savings and their earnings into businesses that will hire people and that will generate wage earners who will pay taxes so our government can build us a new freeway. That's the kind of things we need to generate a prosperous economy in this state. If you have people working and earning wages and creating a tax base, hey, we're going to be back in prosperity again, and that's what I want. I'm working to work for you folks. I want prosperity again. I want people to have spending money. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. We're up to our final question, and this Jerry will be answering this one first. There's been a lot of agreement on some of the issues tonight, but ultimately an election still comes down to people voting for one person over another.